In this video, I'll be building this 6 foot by 8 foot oak kitchen island, and we're going to start by getting the top glued up. So while it's in clamps drying, I can be working on the base. And step one is jointing all my boards for that top, and they're all a little over 8 feet long. And obviously, once I get them glued up into a panel, they'll be 6 foot wide. And this is kind of a unique project that's going into our customer that ordered this table or this kitchen island. Has an old church. It's a 6,000 square foot church that they're remodeling and turning into their house. And I got a chance to go out and look at it, and it's really amazing. There's actually a picture at the end of the video of the kitchen island setting in the kitchen, and it's not that the house isn't completely done yet. They're still remodeling at that point, but the kitchen is just amazing, and this kitchen island does not look too big in there at all, which is just crazy because of the size of it. At this point, we have the glue all spread, and we're starting to get the tabletop and clamps. And this isn't a glue up I would attempt to do by myself. It's just too big, but it is doable with two people. And if you've watched our other videos, you've seen us glue panels up before, but I like to use the 6-inch clamps down the ends. That just helps line the boards up while you're getting the big clamps on, and we'll take those off as soon as we get it all lined up. But as you can see, there's a little bit of hammering going on, and a little bit of, we're just trying to get all the boards as flat and level as we can. And what we don't get out at this point, once we get out of clamps, I will take a belt sander to it and flatten it out. So now I'm going to start on the legs, and we're going to glue up several pieces together to make the legs. And as you can see, this lumber is not, it's rough sawn, it's not milled already. So I'm going to get them cut roughly to size, and then I'll take them through the joiner and just joint one face. And that face is the face that I'll glue together. I'm gluing two of them together to make a leg. And actually, after I end up getting them out of clamps and getting them all milled, they just look too small for the size of the table, and I end up adding a third board to that, just to give them a little more mass. They end up being rectangular that way, but the table is rectangular and they look good, so it worked out well. So I'm just going to show a couple of these legs getting glued up, but obviously, I glued up 4 of them. And I didn't video putting that third board on there, but I did video, the after effects, what I did afterwards. So you'll see that the third board, I made it a little wider than these, and glued it to them, and then used a flush trim bit, and you'll see that in a bit to get it down to the same size as the other boards. So I've got them out of clamps now, and I'm going to flatten 2 sides and square them together on the joiner. So one side and then the next side right beside it, up against the fence, and that way they're square. And then we'll move over to the planer and get the other 2 sides on the planer. And these had to go through the joiner different amounts of times depending on how straight they were. So some of them are wider than others, which is kind of a pain when you start playing them, because you've got to get the thicker ones down to the size of the other ones before you even start getting all of them the same, if that makes sense. Now this is the third board glued on, and I'm just, like I said, took it to this monster flush trim bit and trimmed up both sides to the same size as the other boards that were already milled, and that worked out well. I went through well, you'll see in a minute. I go through the planer one more time to plane the outside edge of that outside face of that third board. So here we are going through the planer to get them all the same width, the same thickness. And then the last step on the legs is going to the table or the miter saw and cutting them the final length. So you can see I've got a stop block set up there, and I just take all four legs through. Now the legs are all done. We can start working on the aprons, and you know, that's rough sawn oak also. So I'm gonna get them flat on the joiner, two sides, and then we'll go through the planer to get the other face, and you know, through the table saw to get the other side. And this, you know, a normal table is just going to have 4 aprons. This kitchen island, we put 2 braces across the bottom of 2 of the legs, and another piece going in between those. So you know, we'll have 7 boards instead of just 4. And also, actually, I'll have 8 because I'll have another board right underneath the tabletop, running between 2 of the aprons just for a little extra strength there. So they're all flat, they're all the same thickness through the planer, and now I'm going to get them all the same width at the table saw. Cutting that 4th side, so now they're all the exact same size. They're all flat, square, straight, ready to go. Now I'm going to get them cut to final length. And I actually missed, you know, I'm starting on my tenons here, and as you can see, I've already started on them. I missed I cut that portion at my radial arm saw. And if you've watched our past videos, you've seen us do that. And if not, you can, you know, go back to another video and see that. But I cut that at the radial arm saw, and now I'm cutting the cheeks off of both sides. My bottom cheek, I like to cut just 1/8 inch, just big enough to cover the mortise, and the top I'll cut at 3/4, and that way I can keep my tenon as big as possible, but still have a 3/4 inch gap on the top, so I have as much meat up there on the top of the leg as I can above this tenon. So now I'm just going to transfer that over to my leg, find the center of the leg right there, and set up my mortiser. So right now I'm setting up the stops to cut my mortise. I've got those 2 lines transferred over from my tenon, and now I'm finding center. And I'm marking the depth there, and I'll go down to that mark the first time, and there's a little depth gauge back there that I'll set. So I just use that mark one time, and there's our first tenon. We've got quite a few to do. And then this is a tenon on the bottom of the leg. And I don't know if you see that there, but there was actually a pretty good chunk of wood missing right there that we just filled in with epoxy. And once we stained the table, that just blended right in and looks great. It didn't stick out at all. Do some final cleanup in those mortises. And ready to start putting this thing together. I'll put the short sides together first and get them in clamps and let them dry, and then I'll come back later and put it all together. And the bottom brace that's going to go between the other 2 braces that you see in this video, or in this shot, I haven't cut it the final length yet because I'm not 100% sure of the final length. I'm going to put all this together. You know, this is obviously going to be glued together, but the long side will just be dry fit together, and then I'll measure for that last brace before I make the tenons on it and cut it to final length. Just to make, you know, 100% sure that it fits right. So as I'm starting to put this in, I realized somehow I messed up this tenon. This tenon is not fitting in the hole, and I just came back with a little pull saw and cut it to the right size. I'm not sure what happened there. I don't remember at this point what happened. So I'm just going to cut that off with the pull saw and get her in there. I'll clean that up a little bit with just a putty knife, and I'll usually come back with a wet paper towel also and wipe that up a little bit. Now this is the bottom side of the tabletop. I'm just flattening it out with the big belt sander. We'll get that flat and move on here. And now I'm ready to cut it to its final length. When I have to put two tracks together like this, I like to use a straight edge along the side of it there. I don't know if you noticed that in that earlier shot, but as I'm putting it together, just to make sure it's straight. And I'm going to make this cut in 2 passes. It was for some reason struggling. I normally don't have a problem, but it was struggling with this oak for some reason. And I do a lot of oak projects. I don't know why this particular time it was, but I ended up doing 2 passes and it worked out fine. Now you can see back behind me there, I've got the table base set up, and I measured for this final brace that's going to go between those 2 braces on the bottom. So I've got that set up and measured, and now I'm making my tenons. And this tenon is a little different. Those other tenons were on the back of my aprons, and this tenon I'm centering so all the cheeks are covered, because this one's going to be out in the open. It's not going to be covered up by the tabletop. So I'm just dialing that in until I get it just right. And my tenon needs to be 3/4 of an inch. That's the mortise I'm making. So I had to dial that in just right. And here I am making the mortises. So I'm going to hog most of my mortise out with a 3/4 inch Forstner bit, and then I'll come back with a chisel and clean up the rest of it until I've got a good mortise. And on the next mortise, I've got a better shot of this part of it, where I'm cutting all that out with a chisel. The first thing I do is just make my lines on the top, and then I start hammering down in there and cleaning it up. And I think I've got it, but once I try to fit it in there, it's a little too tight, so I need to make it just a little bigger. And it fits in there perfect the next time there. Nice, perfect fit. So here's the other one. You can see there I've got a center line drawn on there to line up my drill bit to try and keep me in the center. And I just make a line all the way around. And start clearing that out. It takes about 6 minutes to do one of these. So if you're just a hobbyist, and obviously you don't have a mortiser in your shop, and you're not making tables every day like we do, you're just making one for yourself or something, you can make these mortises at home with a drill bit and a chisel. And you don't even have to have a 3/4 inch Forstner bit. You just have to, whatever bit you had, you just have to make enough holes to hog most of that out, and then you're going to square it up and finish it up with the chisel anyway, like I'm doing here. And I don't have fancy, nice chisels. Those chisels are great chisels. We love them, but they're not crazy expensive, fancy chisels, and they work really well for us. I'll have a link in the description for those chisels and all the other tools that we use in this video. If you're interested, those are on, I got those off of Amazon. Anyway, they're great chisels. And they're not cheap, but they're not crazy expensive like some of the chisels you see out there. Now this leg was not quite square, so I'm getting another set of clamps on the bottom to just to pull it together and square it up just right. If I can get that clamp to stay up there. You can't quite see it there, but I'm holding a square up there and pulling that leg in. Now, I didn't show putting this board in. This is the board that's going to go between two of the aprons. I'm going to glue that in and pocket hole it. And then these are going to go in the corners right behind the legs, just to add a little more strength to that joint. So I'm going to glue that and then and put 5 screws in it, 1 into the leg and then 2 into each apron. And the base is assembled. Like I said, I didn't get putting my cross brace on the video, but I put quite a bit of epoxy on this tabletop, filling in cracks and knots. Now I'm just going back and cleaning all that up with the belt sander. Now sanding across a grain like this, for me, seems more aggressive, and I'm able to get my boards flat faster. But it also will scratch your tabletop. You know, when you're sanding across the grain like that with a belt sander. So then I have to come back and turn the belt sander with the grain and do one more pass like that before I come in with a random orbit sander and do my final sanding. And now I'm just putting stain on the table. This is just a Minwax, oil-based stain. I put it on with a rag. And obviously, after you get your coat on, you need to come back with another dry rag and wipe up any excess that you have on there. And that's what I'm doing here, wiping up the excess. And I'm going to let that dry overnight, and then we'll come back in with a clear coat. And I use Vermont Natural Coatings. It's a great furniture finish. This is the satin. They also have a really nice matte that we use on a lot of our reclaimed wood projects. And I've used them on a few projects like this too for customers if they want that matte look as opposed to the satin. And here we put adjustable feet on just about everything we build, and I'm just drilling for those right now. I use this insert right here, and once again I'll have a link down to in the description for that. And these feet fit perfectly in that insert. I should have filmed this while I was making it, but honestly I wasn't 100% sure it was going to work, and I was figuring that out as I went. But I want to show you what I did here. I need to cut a hole 3.15 inches. It's 80 millimeters. That's to install this power supply in the kitchen island I'm building. The top of it has a wireless charger. You can set your phone on top of it. So this is all you're going to see in the tabletop. And for this to go down in there, you need to cut a 3.15 inch hole. I could use a jigsaw, but I wouldn't get a perfect circle, and if you didn't mess it up too bad, that could be hidden by that flange. But I'd rather cut a perfect hole and not have to worry about that. So what I ended up doing is taking the base off my router. I used it to get the 4 holes. I cut a small piece of plywood, and then used this to mark my 4 holes. I drilled my 4 holes. I countersunk them so the screw head, the screws could go down inside there. And then I attached it on here. I put my bit in and just plunged this down through. so I could see exactly where my bit was going to be. And then I took it off and divided my 3.15 in half. And I measured from the outside edge of the bit to where my center point was going to be, the half of the 3.15, and drilled a hole there. And then I put a screw in, and unfortunately, I'm not going to be able to show you, but that screw had to be countersunk as well. It's underneath this base plate right here. So I'm just marking where the center point's going to be for that hole. Drilling a small hole there to insert that screw into, and just making this pass over and over, slowly lowering that bit into there until I get all the way through. And this really should have been done, before I put finish on it, before I stained it. So that did work, and I did get a perfect circle. That could have went better. I should have covered this with blue tape or something, before I ran my router around and around on top of it. And obviously I should have taken it out and cleaned the sawdust out, because it had nowhere to go until you made it all the way through, and it had quite a ways to go, to get all the way through. So should have stopped, taken my router out and cleaned that out so it didn't get so hot in there. You can see where it burned that, and I'm sure that was not good on my bit. My bit is all black and probably a lot duller now than it was before. But did work. It was a win, but a win that could have been better. Then we're going to come back to the base one more time. We're just putting some slots in here with a biscuit joiner, and that's to use these tabletop clips you see in the bottom corner there to attach the top to the table base. I did put finish, on the base also. I just didn't film that. And this top is crazy heavy, at 6 foot wide and 8 feet long. And being oak, it's a heavy top. So James and I can lift it, but it's a challenge to move it. So we're trying out these carrying straps. I bought them just for this, but we'll use them again, and we've actually have used them again since then already. But they worked great. James is a little shorter than me, and it was bending him over into the tabletop a little bit, but for some reason, me being taller, it pulled him down, but it worked out really well. Get this big monster up on there, and this table's done. I'll crawl around underneath there and add those clips. There's that power plug in place. Worked out really well. And that thing's pretty cool. You can just set your phone on it and charge it. So there it is, all done. I hope you guys like this video. Please like, subscribe if you have any comments, if you have any questions. Love to see your comments. And thanks for watching.